Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. With the Stage 5 Major in the World Championship beckoning, Atlanta FaZe, of course, are heavy favourites to take down both tournaments at the end of the day. But Crimsix says, look, these guys, they're so dominant this entire season, they are scared of falling short when it matters, and Dallas Empire could be the team to do so. Tweeting your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. If you're outside the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, Crimsix is an absolute maniac. As Uber says right here, Uber driver, this guy just cut me off. I look up and this is what I see out of my window. Yeah, there he is, in Crimsix Porsche, in the Porsche. Just, well, having a phenomenal time, looking like a mafia boss. This guy is just honestly on another level as of late. Couple of things to touch on as we start off the video. Thought this was interesting in terms of some issues with the game right now. So there's not some other skin, I'm pretty sure, coming to the game that Zero is talking about right here, because in the pro side, everything's kind of GA'd in a sense, like what you can use on your character model, this type of stuff. It was in the challenger side, and like at variants, for example, like the escape plan, 74U one with the coil on top, things like that people just don't use in pro play. But on the amateur side, it's a bit more free-flowing. You can kind of use what you want, even though like certain weapons and stuff are GA'd, but outside of that, it's kind of okay. So as he says right here, another skin in the game that you cannot see in dark corners. Still a decision from the boys over at Track. GA them, says Sib, but then Zero says people won't GA the new one because they paid 16 quid for it, right? So 16 pounds sterling, Great British pounds, as opposed to, you know, like pounds weight or whatever. But yeah, kind of funny, right? Like if people just don't want to GA the new one because they paid some money for it, so they're like, okay, yeah, no, I actually want to keep using this, but it probably doesn't make the gameplay experience better for anyone. That's just the chaos on the challenger side. And Josh says some similar things here as well. Love having my game freeze for 2 seconds every time I spawn in. Very good update. I haven't experienced this yet. I'm not sure if you guys have experienced this, but Spinner Spencer from the CDL side is like, okay, look, hang on a second, what's going on here? Can we get some information on this so we can try and, I don't know, fix it, talk to the guys at Trek to see what happens. But apparently this is something that also can happen. So yeah, once again, some glitches within the game. Are we really surprised at this point? Thought I'd mention this as well though, right? Because a few days ago, Drazah was, well, it was absolutely a dominant force on Checkmate up against OpTic Chicago when they won that Checkmate control. Then they won the Checkmate hardpoint. But it says right here, at Drazah, it is my Checkmate pal. No, yeah, maybe Los Angeles Thieves had a more difficult time against Dallas Empire, for example, in scrims, potentially on Checkmate. It's, well, hard to exactly read into it, but certainly something to think about, right, when we talk about the Dallas Empire going to this upcoming major. Because at the previous major, I think they were undoubtedly the most improved team from online to LAN, which is kind of surprising and ironic in a way, because they were looking so good online, right, the entirety of last season. And then this season, there's been a lot of issues that Crims has talked about with their internet at their facility and his personal internet and stuff like this, which has made it a more difficult time for them to play online. And on LAN, they looked, well, certainly much better, as we will look at right here. This is the first series they played, right? They beat OpTic 3-0, which is a pretty emphatic and dominant victory for Dallas as it was at the time. And of course, going on to make the grand finals of the event, playing up against Atlanta FaZe, and it went all the way down to the wire in that game 9, where they eventually lost on the, well, right down to the wire. Now, of course, that series loss to the Atlanta FaZe was pretty impressive from the Atlanta FaZe, no doubt about it. But at the same time, Dallas really did push them the distance, and it was impressive to see such a relatively new squad at the time with a relatively limited map pool pushing FaZe the distance in this sense. The search and destroys, though, are always going to be key. In a best of 9, you've got to be great at search and destroys. You've basically got to win like at least 2 searches out of the 4 against Atlanta FaZe if you want to win the entire thing, because more than likely, if you are going to make the finals, FaZe are probably going to be there somewhere or another, either from the winners bracket or from the lower side, if they do happen to lose a best of 5. So yes, look, FaZe are still certainly beatable here. Dallas Empire thinking, yes, look, with a bit more practice here, we can actually certainly do a number on them this time at the Stage 5 Major and also with the World Championship. And the pressure is on FaZe to actually win these last couple of events, because at the end of the day, they're the team to beat. They've been the team that's dominating all season. If they fall short now right at the end of the season, that'd be, well, pretty embarrassing for them, to be honest, and the pressure is certainly on them to perform. This is what Crimsix has to say, and of course he loves to say stuff like this. This is a Dallas news article I'll leave linked down below by Sean Collins if you guys would like to check it out. The link will be there and all that stuff in its full glory, and it's really interesting to hear what Crim has to say, but also Rambo and some of the other players as well. So the question was, look, do you think you can actually take down Atlanta FaZe? I definitely think we can, says Empire veteran Crimsix. He brought up Empire's 5-4 loss to Atlanta in Major 4. Our map pool has now expanded. We went up 3-2, so if that had been a best of 5, we would have won. And of course, well, this upcoming Stage 5 Major, they are in the lower side of the winners bracket. They're going to play the winner of Atlanta FaZe and Minnesota Rokkr. So if FaZe win that, then there will be a best of 5 matchup between Dallas and Atlanta. And if they could do this again, right, to win 3-2, then they would actually move on. And that really does seem to be where FaZe can be vulnerable. In best of 5s, you can take them down. Best of 9s with 4 search and destroys, it's just so hard. You have to play absolutely impeccable Call of Duty, as Empire did for a time. They went up 3-2 in this grand finals. They went up 4-3, but then it just fell apart towards the end, right? FaZe won that crazy Apocalypse hardpoint and closed out on a Raid hardpoint. 2 maps that Crimsix said at the time they hadn't really practiced the entire season, or at least since they got Vivid David into their lineup and made the changes. So of course, Crimsix knows how winning works, but he might add that FaZe might well be feeling the pressure right now. Everyone looks at Atlanta like they're some incredible team, which is, I guess, kind of true. But look, they play the game right, they play smart and disciplined. But if I'm Atlanta, I'm probably a little bit scared now, or feeling the pressure, says Crimsix. He loves rallying them up most certainly. But certainly an interesting statement. I think it could be a valid one. So as he says right here, to continue, the winningest player ever, they were the number 2 seed in the 2020 World Championships too, mostly losing to FaZe all season before defeating them twice in the playoffs and smashing them 5-1 in the final championship. While he knows that Atlanta might be the biggest target, says FaZe is feeling that too. I feel like out of all of the teams, says Crimsix, there are certain ones that, if they get good, they can beat this team. If we play our best, I think the only team that can even come close to beating us is FaZe, and I bet you FaZe is feeling the same right now. They could, of course, match up later this weekend. Interesting from Crimsix, of course, he does like to say this type of stuff to, rile these guys up, and of course, this grand finals, game 9 goes 6-4 in the end. The Atlanta FaZe take it down, and Dallas Empire fall just short, but maybe with slightly more practice, bit of experience. I'm sure FaZe said right here that, oh my god, I didn't realise Arcitys went so rogue right there on the main stage, but he was like, they didn't really play their best Call of Duty, did Atlanta FaZe. And maybe now with Arcitys on the team, it could be a very different story in terms of how well they perform going into these last couple of events, especially the World Championship, because last year, every single time they'd make a grand finals, they'd make a lot of grand finals, Atlanta FaZe, but they would generally always fall short in them, and especially when the pressure was on, they just didn't have that, clutch factor to get them over the line. Arcitys seems to have brought that to them this season, which obviously is pretty scary for the competition, as we have seen so far, but it has to be said, right, these are the point standings this entire season. FaZe have lost 5 matches all season, and that's incredibly impressive, right, given the amount of matches they play. They make a lot of grand finals, right, which means they're playing a fair few matches right over the course of these majors, but still, look, every other team in the league has at least 15 losses on the season, and FaZe just have 5. They're far and away, they have so many more points than everyone. I think it was only a couple of weeks ago that FaZe basically had double the points that OpTic did, which is crazy to think about the dominance that they have, and they have way more than all the bottom 4 teams combined in terms of points to Atlanta FaZe. Dallas aren't too far off that, to be honest. Shows what a shambles those teams have been this season. But still, right, the pressure is on FaZe, you could say. They've, stage 5 major, at the end of the day, I don't think FaZe might mind too much about the stage 5 major. If they win that would be great. But there's the whole dynasty conversation that starts to come around. Toronto have won 1 event this season, FaZe have won all the other 3. If FaZe can win this event and the World Championships and then continue it into next year, all of a sudden you are kickstarting that conversation, no doubt. So FaZe have certainly got something to prove, but at the same time, last year when they were the number 1 seed going into the World Championship, they fell short at the end of that one to the Dallas Empire, and Crim's thinking a similar thing. Maybe they're somewhat scared right now. They're thinking, okay, yes, we might be the best team, we've dominated all season, and we're the heavy favourites to win every single tournament we go to, and if we don't, then the questions are going to start to be raised, and maybe that pressure could get to them to some degree. Certainly Crimsix thinks that might help the Dallas Empire get the better of them this upcoming weekend, and as I say right here, this is the bracket. Dallas Empire will play FaZe if they can get past Rokkr, and then the winner of that will play the winner of OpTic, Ultra, or Thieves, depending on how it goes in the winners finals. So yes, FaZe certainly should be favourites to run through this bracket, but at the end of the day, I think they are certainly beatable in best of 5 formats. I think this FaZe versus Rokkr game is going to be particularly interesting. I hope the Rokkr can put up something of a fight, and then Empire FaZe, if it is that squad, should be an absolute banger, especially with the talk from Crimsix these last couple of days, as we have seen. Of course, another contender for this championship is going to be OpTic Chicago, right? They're going to do their best to finally get over the line here. As I said earlier today, they haven't breached top 4 this entire season, which is pretty remarkable to think about. So they've got a great chance of doing it right here. But as you can see, this is a pretty crazy statistic. Interestingly enough, FaZe have already done this a few times this entire season, which is kind of ridiculous. But OpTic, I think, maybe did it once before. But every player on their team dropped to 1.0 plus in every single game mode. That is a pretty impressive statistic. The other team to do it this stage, kind of surprisingly, was Minnesota Rokkr, which is, I think, pretty sure the only time that they've done that so far this season. But it kind of shows that Rokkr, Atlanta FaZe, OpTic Chicago could be teams that could be pretty scary here. And as we see, FaZe versus Rokkr, maybe the pressure will get to them, as Crimsix is saying, who really knows. But probably not for the Stage 5 major. But maybe for the World Championships when the pressure is really on. And that's the thing they've been working for the entire season. And they've certainly, talked about that in interviews and such, Arcitys and the like, saying look, yes, we won this event, or we didn't quite win this event, but the championship, the World Championship is the big one. And, they're putting the pressure on themselves, I suppose, to live up to expectations. And probably it'll work out for them. But Crimsix is saying that maybe that will not be the case. Just wanted to finish off with this I thought was interesting from CLG Marksman, because a lot of people are saying, okay, how exactly does Black Ops Card War rate this year, right? If you look back at the year, how actually, how good was the actual game? And there's some talk here from Marksman, if there's one thing that every Call of Duty developer should know, it's that maps are the most important part of your game. I agree with this completely. Perk and weapon balance is good, competitive mode is great. That's also, maybe a little bit better than a great, but it's all useless if the maps are awful. Top tier maps carry a game, which is interesting, right? Because a lot of people would say Black Ops Cold War isn't really that good. Do people really like it? But the maps in this game, I think, are pretty damn good. I mean, I guess if you exclude the remakes, they're probably not spectacular. But the fact that you do have Raid in it, you do have Standoff in it, you do have Express in it, the maps in general, I really enjoy playing on much more than last year, for example, in Modern Warfare. Like you can see, last year Gunrunner was pretty good. I enjoyed that one, but St. Petrograd was horrible. Hackney Yard I didn't like at all. Arclov Peak. This season you've got the likes of Checkmate, Garrison, Miami, you know, Moscow, right, Apocalypse. I think all generally not too bad maps, right? Which is interesting because I think looking back on Modern Warfare, a lot of people do still think it was absolutely terrible. But still, I don't think people necessarily think that this year was so much better, even though the maps, I think, on paper are certainly a lot better than they were last year. So exactly what are Sledgehammer going to do later this year to make it work? We hear rumours that the London Docks are making its return in some sort of DLC or something throughout the season. But yeah, maybe only 8 maps on launch or something for this new title. So we've got to hope that the maps are good, because if they're not, the game is pretty tragic to watch and to play, to be honest. But even when the maps are good, doesn't necessarily mean the viewership is going to be spectacular. But intrigued to take your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.